It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island. 'Cause nothing's better than a motion video.
It's Movie Time is produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to broadcast shows Fridays at 4:01 and 8:01 p.m. Read reviews and listen to shows online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando,
And I'm K G Kline.
and this is It's Movie Time. Well, Ken, as one of my superstars, critics, and you have recommended a film called Ash, A-S-H, and that is, at least you alerted me to it, and we decided that we would do it. And I'm so happy that I have you here now, because to me, it's a hot mess.
Well, and it is a hot mess, John. I'm not going to dodge the subject on that one. Well, as you know, I'm a huge fan of low-budget horror films and
Yes.
low-budget science fiction films. I mean, Roger Corman made a career back in the 70s and 80s of churning out these very low-budget science fiction films, and they were all good. And they make the cult cinema circuit today, and they're very enjoyable films I could see again and again. And I had high hopes that Ash was going to fall into this. It looked good. The trailers looked really, really good. Wow. Very different film.
Can you set it up for us?
Okay, so the premise of Ash is that a woman wakes up on a space colony base on another planet with complete amnesia. She doesn't know who she is, she doesn't know why she's there, and everybody on the base except for her, the crew of about 5, has all been violently murdered. So that sets into motion then a very non-linear storytelling of the backstory to what happened leading up to the opening moment of the film. Now, I'm also a fan of non-linear storytelling. I think it works very, very well sometimes, and it can make a movie very dreamy, it can make it very, very, very interesting, but it doesn't work for horror. That's the problem.
Well, am I wrong when as I'm looking at this movie, I said, haven't I seen this before? Wait a minute, there is a great film on a very similar subject called The Thing.
And it does. It touches upon The Thing. We've got a little bit of The Thing. Interstellar is mixed in there. And I would even say Prometheus, a little bit of Prometheus sneaks in there as well. What I think this director was going for was more like Solaris or Sunshine, this very abstract storytelling science fiction but the Sunshine and Solaris both work very, very well because they're metaphysical stories.
Maybe because they take their time.
They take their time, but are also dealing more with thought processes, how we think, how we interact, how we relate to the universe around us, which you can tell non-linearly. But when you're doing a horror film, it doesn't work because one moment you've got this character has been dead for hours, and then the very next scene, this character's alive because now you're back a couple of hours in the past.
Right.
So people are alive and then dead, and then alive again, and then dead again, as the story goes on.
You know, we could have expected some of this from Flying Lotus, the director, or who was a musician.
Is a musician,
Yeah.
known for a very sort of dreamlike quality, very free-flowing, I think is a good word.
Exactly. Yes,
style
right.
to the music.
Yes, that's right.
And trying to carry that free-flowing style into this movie. And I think that it would have worked if he had decided to do just a straightforward science fiction story like Solaris, or even like Interstellar, but not a horror film. It doesn't work in a
And
horror
you're elevating because Kurt Russell and his dog, and whatever I remember from 1980s, early 1980s in The Thing, was a simple but grand piece of horror.
The Thing is a fantastic film.
No, and I thought there might have been the same effect on this, except that this guy is so into the 70s psychedelic. It's just it just is giving me a headache.
The lighting is very difficult on the eyes. I sat there concentrating on this film, trying, because of course it uses the trope of the person with amnesia, which I've never been very favorable. I've never liked that idea. I think that's a cheat. But that being the case, so you've got this character with amnesia, and then the memories start coming back in pieces and not in chronological order. So suddenly she's remembering something important that happened 3 hours ago. Then she's remembering something that happened 6 hours ago, then 5 hours ago, and it just makes for an unnecessary hodgepodge of a story that you're trying to piece together like a puzzle in your mind that didn't need to be this way at all. There's no reason why this movie had to be told nonlinear.
And if you think about some of the greats like Alien and the Alien franchise,
Yeah.
there is an element of whodunit, but it's more of how horrible can you make it? How can your imagery be?
Yeah, films like this really are sort of haunted house movies in space. And they obviously Alien shows that they can work wonderfully. But I can name films from the 1950s that worked wonderfully too in the same format. The monster on the loose in the space station or on the spacecraft. But this, it's a good story, and the acting is fantastic. But it's been cut to pieces, re-edited. It's like they dumped the pieces into a box and then just pulled them out randomly and taped it together.
The images just drown the movie of it, any rationale.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, she is fetching, meaning both in the way that she acts and the way that she looks. Isa Gonzalez.
Yeah, Isa Gonzalez does a great job with it. But it's so nice to see her breaking away from the action heroes format,
yes,
and showing that she really has some good acting chops.
Oh yes, yeah. And look at Ken. I mean, we have to reveal some stuff here to make any sense for our audience, because the movie doesn't sometimes make sense. We have to make sense. Look at this. My simple love of Forbidden Planet, for instance, relies in the end on the monster actually being within. The enemy.
The monster from the id.
From within. And you've got some of that motif here in this film, and that has worked for me in the past. And I think even The Thing, as I recollect, with that monster coming from, it
was being generated by machines on the planet.
But it's taking over.
It's killing off everybody else, because the monsters from the id become manifest and destroy our enemies, which in our dreams is everybody. Everybody that's not like us.
So when you looked at your buddy next to you, your buddy could be the monster.
He could be the monster. He could be the person generating.
So it's a pretty cool idea. And if you look at it, even current political climate, there are monsters all over the place. And so allegorically, it works for totalitarian states as well around the world, being taken over by, and it doesn't have to be aliens, it can be taken over by somebody who lives next door. And so that's where I thought it had the promise, Ken.
I think what Lotus was trying to do here was to do something very much like Solaris. Something very metaphysical, something that reaches above just your standard slasher horror film in space. However, what we end up with is something that reminded me much more of a 20-year-old Vincent D'Onofrio film called Impersonator, and I'm sure there's two of you out there listening that remember this movie.
Count me out.
Yeah, it has the same problems that Impersonator had. In fact, it has more problems than Impersonator had, because Impersonator was at least a chronological story.
Was there one that I didn't see, but I understand, Possessor? Did you ever see that? Recently?
No.
I didn't either, okay.
Oh, and the D'Onofrio film, I'm sorry, not Impersonator,
well, you'll think of it.
I'll think of it.
Yeah. People are saying, why don't we pull out our phones? We don't do that.
No, we don't do that here. We don't do that. But yeah, it was that 20-year-old Vincent D'Onofrio film. Very similar in style and format, except that film shows that if you do it chronologically, it's okay. When you throw it together in non-order, it doesn't make sense.
And she somewhat reminds...
Imposter.
Okay.
Imposter's the film.
Well, and she somewhat reminds me, again, Isa Gonzalez. I'm so impressed with her as a human being and as an actress. Doesn't she remind me a little bit of, would I be wrong to say that Riley in the Star Wars?
Oh, you mean Ray?
Whoever.
Yeah.
The newest beauty was really good.
It reminds me a little bit of her, yes. You mean Daisy Ridley.
Yes, Ridley,
Daisy
thank
Ridley.
you, yes, yes.
Yeah, it does remind me a little bit of Daisy Ridley. I think a little bit of maybe of Jenna Ortega thrown in there as
So
well.
you can see there's possibilities here.
Yeah, and she's an established actress. We've seen her do a number of other things, but she's been pigeonholed into action films, and this did give her a chance to develop a character and show that she could. And of course,
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul we have seen going back to the Highlander franchise.
All right, K G Kline. Look at it, we're going already. We're gonna make some more sense out of this on our podcast, which is called Back Talk. You have to go to WCBE.org and the podcast experience to get it. And we're gonna look at some other science fiction films, because whenever we do this, we always like to go back to the greats. You know, what are what's the litmus test for a great film? So, K G Kline, this weekend, we've got Snow White, which is probably the complete opposite of the movie Ash that we're talking about.
Very true.
What do you
John.
recommend
Oh,
about
go
Ash?
see Snow White. Go see Snow White, folks, is terrific. It is easily the best of the live-action Disney adaptations. And the moments that they take directly out of the original 1937 movie and bring to life, the hi-ho and whistle while you work, it is just magic. You're back in the golden age of Disney once again.
You saved the show because we consider ourselves, among other things, cheerleaders.
So if we can't recommend Ash, we can at least recommend Snow White.
It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom, he's gonna let you know